All right, EC's Garage, episode 7. Going to inspect the axle seal brake stuff. All right, so first thing you do, chock your front tires. Obviously jack it up, get your wheel off, which you've seen me do already. Make sure the e-brake is off or you'll never get that drum off. Mallet in case you need it, right? If you need to bang this loose. This was just done like a year ago, so easy, right? Came off, so, oh, that's no good. So these pads are done. Drums, I'm able to clean those up, but I've got to replace these. And I just did this, so it's pretty new. Does not look good at all. Here's the new OEM wheel cylinder that I installed. Definitely appears to be axle fluid, differential fluid. Another way to check is by looking at the brake reservoir, and if it's not low, we know that the fluid isn't leaking anywhere. So this is no good. And as you can see, brake fluid is still at the maximum line, still high, so it is not brake fluid. Axle differential fluid, so the axle seal is done. Common issue, so check these regularly. I advise do it every oil change. Like I said, I just replaced those Highlander springs in the back with the OME a month ago, month and a half. I did it like, yeah, early June, something like that. What is it, end of July? So just happened, but obviously has ruined those brake pads in the back. Though I haven't noticed it stopping, not during the last drive, so I'm gonna have to clean that up and get that replaced. All right, first thing you want to do, obviously, put your paper down. I'm gonna start on the passenger side. That's why I don't have paper on the driver's. Because it's leaking, no other reason. I'm just starting with the passenger side because that's the one that's leaking. I'm just gonna do it first. Like I said, I'm not gonna do one, fill the differential, bleed the brakes, and then do the other however many months from now, because it's gonna happen. Jack it up, put your paper down, put your stands underneath it, and next thing we'll do is get the wheel off. Definitely block off your front tires. You remember, because to get your drum off, you're gonna need to turn off the emergency brake. So even if it's in park, block your tires up front. All right, as you can see, I've got the wheel off, I've got the drum off. It's pretty much a mess in here. It happened recently. I think most of this occurred while the vehicle was sitting. Just looking around, some parts are completely dry. So the first thing you want to do, obviously, pull the drum off. Get to the back. You want to remove the brake line, the steel brake line here. Now what I did is I drained, you didn't see it, but I didn't document it, but I drained, this is easy to do. I drained the reservoir. You can take a, one of those like kitchen tools with like the baster thing. You can do that, or just have somebody get in the car, loosen up your drain plug on any of them, on any of the brakes. The front's gonna be better, and then do the rear. But I just had somebody, hose connected to the bleeder plug down to my catch can, and I just have somebody pump the brakes until most or all of the fluid's out. You're gonna make a mess. Get your paper down, have paper towels next to you, and cap this off. I just used a vacuum cap. I'm not sure what size. I just eyed it and put it on. Next thing I'm gonna do is remove this pin down here on the brakes. There's a locking pin there. Bam, pull that off. Take these 4 bolts off, and then slide the take the ABS sensor off. So yeah, let me get through that, and I'll tell you what I did. But there's a pin here you got to pull off. These springs. Get the ABS sensor out. Undo these 4 bolts, and yeah. So we'll review it when I get to that point. All right, quick update. E-brake for the cable, the pin, and the bigger pin. So the clip and the pin, this just pulls off with a little bit of a needle nose pull one way, slide the thing out, put it somewhere you're not going to lose it. I recommend keeping brake fluid and also towels, shop towels next to you, like I said, because you're going to hit bolts that are covered in sludge, things like that. So I'm cleaning stuff off on the back as I get this done, just the bolt head, so I can get a good clean surface to get the wrench on the socket. After I get all this apart, I'm going to, if you have a part soaker, great. Otherwise, obviously don't soak these, just toss them out, get new ones. I'm going to hose all this down with some brake cleaner and clean it up with shop towels. Wear safety goggles, because you've got your face down here in these tight corners, these areas, and if you're shooting this, or you're underneath and you're just wrenching on this like stuff, sludge is going to fall on your face, get in your eyes. Protect your eyes. Hose this off, keep a distance, wear safety goggles. All right, Officer Bird moment. All right, now we got back to Eazy-E and Blondie. I'm not sure Eazy-E, the estate of Eazy-E, nor Blondie are going to sponsor this video, so I had to shut them off. But here we are. I'm going to take off the 4 bolts in the back here to get this axle slid out, and we'll pick up from there. All right, I got the 4 axle bolts off. I'm about to pull the axle off. Remember, by the way, they're 14 millimeter, not too difficult. I did it with a closed, swivel ratcheting wrench and a breaker bar, aka big wrench. Use, like I said again, safety goggles important. There's like all sorts of grease and road grime on this. You don't want it in your eyes. Not only is it dangerous, but if you have to go in the house and wash your eyes out, it sucks. And you just wasted time. So definitely recommend that. So let's see how this comes off. All right, pretty easy. Okay, not too bad. I expected a little bit more of a mess. Again, doing this job by myself. Bam, there's the axle. All right, I'm gonna clean some of this grease up before I take it inside, get on the press. Maybe shove a clean towel in there. I hope you can see all this. I've got the camera on my head. Moog sway bar links still look good, even though I haven't been able to drive it, because when I installed those is when I discovered these axle seals were bad. All right, there's a seal right there. All right, we're gonna be careful pulling that out. You don't want to mar anything or scratch it, but we're not gonna get to that now. I think I'm gonna deal with this. Get the axle and the ABS ring here off. Get the retainer, get these retainers off. Get the wheel bearing pressed out, and then I'm going to degrease this. It's gonna look brand new. By the way, so far this job has not taken a lot of time. 40 minutes. That's with stopping and talking, maybe 35 minutes. That's with stopping and talking. Yeah, 37 minutes exactly. That's with stopping and to film and tell you guys what's going on. Really easy so far. The hardest part to date, now, is cracking those nuts loose from this bolt. Not a big deal from these studs here. Not a big deal at all. I expect this to be much more difficult. I do have a press. I do have an axle tool. So cross your fingers. All right. So now I've got to pound these studs down. I got one down already. I put some PB Blaster on, let it sit for about half an hour, and they're coming out pretty easy now. This took like 2 whacks before they wouldn't budge. I want you to see this. I do notice some play here in the wheel bearing, quite a bit. Now, like I said before, you've got this off, and if I put this on without replacing the wheel bearing, not only is it just a matter of time before this goes bad, like completely, it gets worse. It's just gonna get worse, and before I have to take this all apart again and do it again, but it's gonna wear that seal out and could cause some other trouble. So good thing we're doing it. All right, so next, bam. And you see I put the studs, the nuts on the studs flush, so you're banging on the bolt and the stud. That's the way to do it. All right, easy. This one here, be careful. All right, now I can fit the bearing splitter around here, pull the retainer and ABS gear off, and then get to the there's a clamp in here somewhere. We'll cross that road when we get there, but we got to pull a C-clamp off after we pull the ABS and the retainer off. All right, so starting to get late. It's after 6. The sun's starting to go down a little early. It's getting down earlier than every day now. Time to I gotta let the dogs out. Can't believe I just said that. I've got to take them out to the park. They get minimum 3 hours a day of just open running outside. Minimum. Usually it's 4 hours. Maximum 6.5. I take them to the park. I just let them run wild. So that's where we're going now. Or else they won't sleep. And if they don't sleep, I don't sleep. No, actually I do exercise. Dogs need to run. They need exercise. They need socialization. They need to get out and see the world. So that's what we're about to do. Also, like I said, we're losing light. And I keep this garage pretty dim, so I don't have great shop lights in here or anything like that. So when we come back tomorrow, maybe I'll finish this up tonight by myself and not film it, but we will get the driver's side, so you get the pleasure of seeing that. But what I'm gonna do, like I said, get that bearing splitter around here, get the retainer and the ABS gear off, find that retainer clip somewhere I gotta pull this. I'll find out, and I'll give you an update on that. And then press that bearing. All right, we're back. I've got the bearing puller clamped underneath the ABS gear, right? So you need to make sure you get under this, and to do that, you've got to pound the axle studs down, right? Pound them out. Some of them come out. I'm gonna flip this over. I'm gonna take this entire thing apart, clean it, scrub it down, make it look really good, put it all back together nice, and then put those studs back in as before I put the brakes back on. So that's what I'm gonna do there. But for right now, pound these down, get this bearing separator underneath the gear. Don't try to do it with the studs because you might get close, but you're gonna end up damaging the teeth. I'm sure of it. Like one end will go underneath, but the other end won't. So yeah. All right, so now I got this here screwed on, a little more than finger tight. I'm gonna put this here. Now, up above this, clamp them down with these little guys. I'll pick probably whichever side makes sense out of these fittings to grab onto this, and then I'm gonna jack it down. All right, gonna jack out the bearing. All right, I've got my press set to where I need it to be. Got these here just to keep this in place. Let's start pressing it out. Cross your fingers. I may have to set this thing on top of those blocks to get enough leverage. All right, got a little bit of tension. All right, got some there. Oh wow, this is coming off pretty smoothly. So far so good. I'm gonna hang on to this so it doesn't crash. Almost. There we go. Saved it. One-handed. Ow. All right, let this down slow. I don't know if you can see much of this, but all right. Done. Look at that. Looks great. Really impressed with this press. Really impressed with this press. All right, so now I'm going to take the separator off, get these out. I've got the retainer and the bearings, the new bearings, in the freezer. Didn't need to put the retainers in the freezer. I just put the whole, I have everything all together. I just put the whole thing in the freezer. So anyway, gonna press the bearings out next and remove, all right, you'll see when I get there. Let's do it. All right, now that I've got the ABS gear and the retaining ring off, I got to remove this C-clip, already giving me a little bit of trouble. C-snap ring, yeah, C-clip, snap ring, whatever. Already got my grips out. Already got my grips out. I'm gonna put this camera down and work this, but that's your next step. You gotta get this thing off. Then you're gonna take off the bearing and this other retainer right here. All right, I'm working the snap ring out. It has been a little bit difficult. What I've done was I got my snap ring pliers in here, right? Clamped out and sort of lifted it up, sort of flipped it up so it got out of this groove. Then I stuck a small screwdriver in, right? Started working it out, got a bigger screwdriver in for more leverage. Now I'm just prying it off. I'm not using this retainer, so I haven't damaged it yet, but I'm not reusing this retainer. I got new ones. So it doesn't matter if I damage it. Just give you a heads up, you know, the retainer clip, it is, C-clip is a little bit difficult to get out. Just get creative and do your best. All right, now that I got the C-clip off on the back, the axle here is free to move inside this hub, but I can't pull it out because the brakes are on. So I don't say I'm gonna pull that out anyway, but I'm gonna take these brakes off since I'm gonna clean this whole thing anyways. Right now I'm just gonna get as much of the stuff out of the way as I can and press the bearing out, and then I will work on cleaning this up. After that, we press the new bearing in, new retainer, you know, retaining rings here, C-clip, axle seal in the axle, just kind of thinking out loud, then we get it back together. Taking apart the brakes, so you pull these guys out first, right? As you know, you turn this till it lines up, pop them off. I always put stuff back together, set it aside, take off the clip around this that holds this guy to there, take off this here that holds this to there. This is all coming apart. Put your parts in one spot. I usually keep them in a cup a little further away, but I'm kind of in the zone right now, so I'm just gonna stay here. Next thing, I just connect this cable for the e-brake from here, bam, pull that out, Springs always suck. This is like the suckiest part of drum brakes. Don't damage my wheel cylinder, master cylinders. Wheel cylinders, don't damage. Okay, don't damage my wheel cylinders here. These are brand new. Right tool for the right job makes everything easier. So I'm gonna try to do this here. Cook this here. That. All right, come on. Don't damage the brakes. That would have taken a lot longer with trying to use these. Bam, done. I'm gonna pull these off, set everything aside together with all the parts in it, just so I don't forget which way it goes. That's another reason why I've mentioned before, I always do one side at a time. So I can always pull the other side off and just reference it real quick. Really, all I'd have to do is pull the tire and the drum off, and I can see exactly how it goes back together. Drum brakes are a pain, but that's how you make it easy. So now I'm gonna get all of this cleaned up. I'm gonna press the axle and the bearing here out of the hub. I'm gonna do that first, after I move all the brake parts away. And then I'm gonna clean all of this up. The drum, all of these parts. You can toss these because these brake pads need to be replaced. Clean out the inside of the drum, clean the wheel cylinder, the bolts, the springs, everything. I'm gonna clean it all as clean as I can get. You know, wire brush, some degreaser, or maybe just a brake cleaner. You can never have too much brake cleaner. And shop towels. You can never have much of those either. So for right now, what I like to do when I'm finished with the project, or when I'm finished with a certain like piece of a project, I like to put the tools away. If I'm done, I put them away for the moment. That's why I always know where they're at. They're not my way. I'm not kicking them around. Lesson I had to learn over many, many years. Finally got through my head. So now that's what's next. So pressing this out, cleaning this up. Here we go. All right, and now that I got all the brakes stuff out of the way, I've got more room to work here, and I'm not going to damage anything. So time to pull this bearing out. Okay, next thing we got to do is pull these studs back through all the way in. They need to be, you need as much stud length as you can get here to fit this puller back over it and bolt it on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use all these washers, do these one at a time, to put some leverage right underneath the bolt, so this will get smashed between this serrated stud and the bolt. Tighten these down. You can feel in the back, I still feel a gap, so I know it's not in as far as it's going to go. Alright, pretty good. Alright, look, we got decent amount of stud there. Those look good. I see these two are noticeably shorter because they're not in all the way. I just pushed them in with my finger basically. Now I've got to crank them down so I can get this on top of the hub here, and so that there's enough stud that I can get one of these washers over it, and then the bolt on top. So I'm gonna get these. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get this puller on top of this and get it bolted down. All right, as you can see, we got the puller kit bolted on to the hub. These are tightened down pretty tight. This is definitely enough. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to feed this back up through this on the press and crank it down. Doing this job by myself again. Don't know if you can see any of this. Camera's on my head. Bring this through here like this. This is a bit less room to work here. We're gonna have to drop this. We're gonna have to drop this down. Thank goodness for rubber free. All right, got this lowered the next notch down. Gonna try not to kick parts on the ground. All right, got that in. We're gonna do this. All right, got this set up. Gonna center that with the jack. Crank it down. All right, just about got the puck lined up with the with the spline axle shaft. That works. Okay, cool. I'm definitely not going to put my hand in there to feel around. It's under a lot of pressure. I do see some gap in there, so that works. Don't put your finger in there to feel what's happening. We use this, that a lot. Put your hand places to feel things, just like when I was doing the upper control arms, those brackets underneath the battery, you reach in, you feel around. That's how you get stuff done without taking a whole bunch of other stuff off. I wouldn't recommend doing it here because of all the pressure that it's under. We're just gonna catch it with 2x4s, whatever. I feel like that should have been done. All right, yeah, that looks good. All right, as you can see, we just pressed the wheel bearing out, and as you can also see, it travels pretty far. You do have to crank on this for a while. It finally fell out, it's done. I'm gonna unbolt this, get that bearing free, and then I'm gonna clean up this hub, all these parts, all the disc brake stuff before I reassemble it. I got this off, bam. Bearing's free. I gotta undo this, start cleaning everything up. Goes without saying, be careful of this axle. When you're putting it through the press and things like that, you're setting it on the ground. Don't damage this. I'm not speaking from experience because I have not done it. This is perfect, and you want to keep it that way. All right, I think this is another retainer clip. I gotta get that off somehow, I think. All right, I'm gonna clean all this up, finish up here, and we'll get going. We'll get started putting stuff back together. All right, got the wheel bearing and outer seal pressed out. All right, so once you run this through the press, this came out pretty easy. I took a punch in here with a hammer, quick whack, and it fell right out, so easy. Next thing, remember there's 2 of these retainer rings on this. The other just fell right off. Then you've got this seal. Sits in here like this, right? I'm replacing this also. I recommend you do as well. That just pulls right out. I did it with my hands. I didn't need to pick or pull or anything like that. So next, I'm gonna clean this up. I'm gonna get all of this differential grease and all this road sludge off. I'm gonna get this as clean as I can. Get the inside here clean because the wheel bearing and that seal is gonna go in here. You want it to be clean. Pull the wheel bearings, the new wheel bearings, out of the freezer. Freeze them overnight so they contract and they fit in here a little bit better. And then we'll get the seal on the other side before that, then the bearing, and we'll start putting things back together. All right, so now we got this old inner oil seal here we got to pull out. I got a slide hammer. We're going to get that set up, and I'll show you how to get that ripped out from there. Seal in here, we're going to use a puller. I'm just going to get a couple of these. I mean, you could spend all day getting this set up. I'm going to get a couple of these hooks, 2 of them in there, put some tension on that, and then I'm going to, bam, pull it out. Easy. All right, so I just pulled this bearing out of the freezer, nice and cold. I'm gonna put some grease on here and on the inside of this hub. I'm gonna get this fit in. Wow, that went really easy. All right, so I didn't have to press it. So I am gonna put a little grease in there after I get this back out and then let that slide back in. Easy, freeze your bearings. All right, so now I'm gonna use some grease on the axle here. Make this easy to work with, bam. Gonna make it easier to get everything on. Oh, what is this? Is this moly? No, this is just some regular grease. Keep your shop towels handy. All right, so this is all greased up. Perfect. I got the inside of this bearing greased. Now we're gonna take this guy here, very carefully bring this down over, come on, over the axle here. All right, that is a tight fit. And get some grease on the retainer also. Oh, so messy. There. Some grease inside this. All right, now that bearing, as you see it isn't necessarily pressed in there, so it's in kind of loose. What we want to do, we're going to do this bevel facing up. All right, got the axle and the hub set up on the press. So got the bearing piece right here. I'm gonna line this up with that retainer as best I can. You see the bearing popped out a little bit. I spun it around. I'm gonna make sure it goes in as straight as possible. But there's a little bit of play in there. It's not necessarily pressed straight in, so that should go in straight. I got grease on the bearing. All right, what else we got? Plates here. Gonna drive this straight into here. I may put a socket in here and have that drive the socket, drive the axle down, push the bearing and the retaining ring here up. All right, so now I've got the hydraulic press lined up with the socket down into the hub. Got that centered as best I can with the rest. Retaining ring, that's centered. Bearing looks fairly level going in. So now we're gonna press it in slowly. Actually not going to bore you with this. We'll go slow, watch it on the way in, back it out if anything binds or seems crooked or starts to lean or whatever, and try it again. But other than that, you'll see it when this is done. And so what we got here, retaining ring is up. You know, if you move, you can see through here through this tool that this guy made, which is awesome. You can see that it clears the gap for the C-clip. Bearing is pressed all the way in, and I used a axle socket on top of the this little hub thing, and pushed the the jack down into that. Cranked it, had to undo it, look at it, and bearing wasn't flush, it wasn't seated properly, and tried it again, it went right in. So this is good. So now we're gonna take this off and go to the next step, which I believe would be the snap ring here, the C-clip snap ring, and then also the next retainer. So that was the old C-clip, and this is the old retainer, so we're putting new ones on. All right, so now we're gonna put on the ABS gear and the retainer from the top. This is how it comes on, right? This is how Toyota puts it on. Apparently this is a really cool trick because these sort of flare out a little bit, and apparently this is gonna help keep the seal in place. So we're gonna try this trick. Sit that over that. Now we're gonna flip this back over, get it back on the press, and press this down. All right, so now we got the ABS ring set up here, the retainer, lining this up as best as possible. Got my axle socket in front of the press. Now I'm gonna press that down nice and slow. This little window here, like I said earlier, which was cool to see something through, we're gonna use that in a minute. So we'll check that out. I got my seal driver ready, my hammer, got my seal in there just lightly, right? It's a little crooked, so it's not going to go in with your hand, so you definitely need something that's going to put pressure on all sides of this, or you're going to end up bending something. I've seen that done before. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to get this together, make sure this is clean this ABS center area out really well. Now I'm looking at it. Get the axle on and get the brakes together. And then start on the driver's side. All right, so we are going to reassemble the passenger side axle now. I've got the bearings pressed out, I've got the new bearings in, new seals in, I've got O-rings, everything, retainer clips, all that stuff, all new. Got them all pressed on where I need them to be. Now I'm going to put the axle back into the housing, bolt it back up, put the brakes back together. Now, this side was the side that's leaking. So the drum, inside the brake housing, a mess. I took everything apart, the springs, the cables, the little constant pressure arm thing. I took all of that off, cleaned it, ordered new shoes, new drum. The drums are both new, so there's not going to be any big difference from either side. Not that it would be a big deal anyway. But that's what's going on. Now, the hardest part of this job, was this job hard? No. It's pretty simple. Just like anything, like I've said before, take your time, one step at a time, be patient. You do need the correct tools. You absolutely need a press. You absolutely need a seal puller. You need a bearing seal driver. You absolutely need that. You don't want to screw this job up. Not only, taking the old seal out of the axle, the housing, you don't want to mar that up. So use the right tool. Also, a note about the wheel bearings. This chassis has at least 340,000 miles on it. I thought there was some play in the bearing when I got the axle out. Got the new bearings in, and it turns out by holding the hub assembly, shaking the axle, there's still the same amount of play. So I'm not really certain those bearings were bad. I did freeze the new ones, and they dropped right in. There wasn't a whole lot of room or a lot of play, but you didn't have to press them in. So that was fairly easy. Though that was fairly easy, but getting the hardest parts, getting the retaining clips, right? Getting those on, getting them right in the right spot and pressed in to where you need them to be. There's a lot of information on that out there. You know, 1/4 of an inch, you know, but below the polish level. Some people put it exactly where it used to be. I'm going somewhere in between that. So that's been the most difficult part. Other than that, it's just taken time. You know, you're setting up the press, you're putting the parts on, you're pressing stuff down, you're taking things back apart, putting studs in, taking them out. This axle tool I've got made it, you know, it would be impossible to do it without. Made it really easy to do because it was built specifically for this, with a lot of attention to detail in mind. So far, so good. Now we're going to put the axle back on, put this passenger back together, and then get on the driver's side. All right, that was fairly easy. It's done. Passenger side is done. Remember, that's the side that the axle seal actually went bad. Leaked differential fluid all over inside the drum. Big mess. I'm going to move on to the driver's side now. I'm replacing on the driver's side also both the axle seal, the dust cover, the wheel bearing, since I'm in there, and it's got several 100,000 miles on it. Replacing the retainer rings, and of course the snap clips. Other than that, I'm reusing the ABS gear. I'm going to go a little bit slower on the driver's side. I'm going to film a little bit more, so if you want to see that, check out that video. I haven't even cut this thing yet, but I did intend just to make it like, here's a step, bam, here's a step, bam, here's a step, bam. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on the driver's side for someone who needs that. All right, so we'll see you there.